Hi, this is the introduction to flexible volumes that NetApp supports in the ONTAP environment. We will describe them and create them, discuss that they can be moved and rehosted, and more. First, the official name is FlexVol or flexible volume. There's a distinction between FlexVols and, for example, FlexGroups, which is also a volume type. So when I say volume, I mean FlexVol. Volumes are always part of an aggregate, and you can host many volumes in one single aggregate. But volumes cannot span aggregates, so the maximum size of a particular volume would be the size of the aggregate. Also, volumes are always part of an SVM. You cannot create a volume that does not belong to a particular SVM, so you'll need a data SVM to be able to create volumes. After the volume is created, or at creation time, a volume can be mounted to a junction path. The root volume of a storage virtual machine contains those junction paths, which will be removed when you unmount the volume. Typically, volumes that are used for NAS data will need to be mounted because NFS and CIFS clients will use the root volume of the storage virtual machine to enter the SVM's namespace or file system structure. You can move a volume from one aggregate to another aggregate of any node in the cluster. So you would do that, for example, to balance the load or to better spread the storage usage in your cluster. And when a volume starts to fill up, you can manually or automatically add more space to the volume. And next to growing a volume, you can also shrink the volume. Now imagine that you have an SVM for testing purposes that has a volume with test data. Once you decide that all tests have succeeded and you want to take the data into production, you can rehost the volume and bring it under control of a production SVM without having to move data around. Simply move the volume control from the test SVM to the production SVM. This does have some implications, but you will not have to move the data. We will have a look at that using the command line later. Another important thing is that before you can offline a volume, you will have to unmount it. And if you want to delete the volume, you will have to offline it first. So the order would be unmount, offline, and then delete. Finally, you can decide whether you want to reserve space in the aggregate or not. This means that a volume that is space reserved, as it's called, will reserve the size of the volume in the aggregate that it is hosted in. The other option is to thin provision the volume. This means that the volume will only take the space that is allocated by data that is written to the volume. So again, when you create a volume of 100 gigabytes, no blocks are allocated. It is just the space that is reserved in the aggregate, if the volume is space reserved. In this tutorial, we are not going to discuss flex groups other than stating that a flex group basically is a collection of volumes that can be treated as if they were one single volume. This allows you to create a volume that is very large, think of many petabytes, and that's spread across multiple aggregates. But as I said, we will concentrate on FlexVols in this and the next tutorials. So let's have a look at it.